Tonight.
felonies.
And David just graduated today, right?
Right.
So I just kind of want to talk about what happened and about your childhood and
Well, I
what
was
you remember.
born to,
And
in on October the 20th, 1916.
what's your earliest memory?
I don't know, but it was very late, I guess. Uh, I don't remember too much of my childhood, but the earliest thing I can remember was looking out a window and seeing Lena on the outside with a lot of snow, and she was throwing snowballs at me through the window.
And do you vividly remember that,
I
or you
remember
think
that.
you remember it?
I remember that particular scene. Then the next thing I remember, I was on a ship going somewhere, and I was in a company of a lady who was with my mother, supposedly my mother,
And you called her mother?
and I called her mother, and she gave me a pack of colored pencils or Crayolas, I don't remember exactly which, and a great big red apple, and asked me to to draw it and color the apple. So I remember that, and I don't remember uh, too much more on shipboard, except that I was up on deck one time, and a Chinese sailor gave me some lychee nuts. I didn't know they were lychee nuts at the time, but later in life I found out they were. And I thought they were very good. Then the next thing I can remember, we were someplace in China, and we were in an upstairs room, apartment, or what, I don't know. And how long we stayed there, I don't know. But then I remember looking out over the balcony or such, and there was a little Chinese guy with a little turntable who was making little clay dolls, and which I was quite fascinated with, and finally was able to buy one. I didn't buy it, but my mother bought it for me, and I thought it was something different and something I wanted, and I got it. Then the next thing I remember, we were on ship again, and the other thing I remember, we landed at, I think, San Francisco, and I could see the pilings out through the porthole, bobbling in the water, going up and down, what looked like it was going up and down. And then the next thing I remember was that we were on a train going across country, and I think we were going to Little Rock at the time, and then Lena and Dan met us at the depot and brought us to their home.
Then you were in a home, and Lena was your sister, as far as you know.
Supposedly, no, yes,
And
she was my sister.
and
And Dan had married Lena when she was 14, 15 years old in Russia.
and Dan was in the
In
army,
the army, yeah.
and he was in Siberia or
During
Vladivostok or
that time,
someplace we don't know.
wherever I was.
And
I was supposedly born in, I know Petrograd, which was Petrograd at that time,
now I thought that
and
letter said
Leningrad later, wasn't it?
I thought the letter you had said you were born in Yakutsk.
And yet, Yakutsk, I think, was where the family had a home or something, wasn't it?
Well, the letter that you sent me said it was Yakutsk, and then they had a home in Irkutsk.
Yeah, I could be confused about that, and I probably am. But I know they had several homes. They had one in Leningrad or Petrograd, and one somewhere in a summer home somewhere down Baltic or someplace else. I don't know, somewhere down one of the ocean people homes where they spent their summers.
How long do you think Lena was in the United States before you came over?
I have no idea.
And probably you entered illegally. Well, you probably entered legally, but you probably weren't supposed to stay.
That could well be because I had no papers other than what, well, as far as I know, I had no legal papers to enter. country now. We were probably allowed into the country because Lena was married to an American soldier, and at that time, American soldier could bring their wife here without any problem. And she automatically at that time became a citizen, or could become a citizen. And so we were probably the family, and so...
Yeah, but on the other hand, you must have had some papers. Otherwise, they wouldn't
Well,
let you
I
through.
didn't have them, but...
They wouldn't let you through immigration.
Well,
I mean,
I didn't have them. Where those papers are or whatever, what they were, I have no idea.
I mean, I guess it is possible that you could have came in legally.
Entirely possible.
And it wouldn't have been any problem at all.
No. But I have nothing to prove how I came here.
Anyway, so then you don't remember
I disappeared.
You don't remember living in Arkansas?
Yeah, I remember living in Arkansas.
What do you remember about that?
I remember we were in an army camp.
Where do you think you were in Arkansas?
I thought we were at Camp Pike at Little Rock, Arkansas.
But you've never been able to verify that as an adult that that's where you were.
No.
It's just looking back on it, you think that's where it must have been.
Then from there.
Wait, what else do you remember about Arkansas?
Oh, I remember in Arkansas that I went hunting with Dan in the woods one time. He killed a big hog. And I remember there was a hill right by our house, and I had one of these three-wheeled hobby horses that you could ride on. They were all wooden at that time. No metal wheels. And I would climb this little hill and ride down the hill, and there was on my shoot or whatever you want to call it,
do you remember,
having fun. And I started school there, but I don't remember.
Now, do you remember speaking English or Russian or what?
I spoke Russian for quite a while because my mother spoke to me in Russian.
Well, how did you learn English?
And I learned English from being here, from other kids, and going to school, starting school.
Do you remember feeling funny that you couldn't speak English, or how did
No,
you
I
handle
think I was too young, and it really didn't faze me at the time.
And
Today I probably would, yeah.
And what name did your mother call you?
She called me Nikolai.
And what did Lena call you?
Nikolai.
And what did Dan call you?
Everything.
Well, if everybody called you Nikolai, why do you think your name is George?
Well, because I assumed that Nikolai was my middle name, and they just called me Nikolai. And because what records I have showed that I was George, and Nikolai must have been my middle name.
Now, so then you were in Arkansas. Is that about all you remember out of Arkansas? Anything else?
Yeah, except that when I went up to Bible school, Sunday school on Sundays.
Well, that's kind of strange that you would have gone to Sunday school, right? I mean, because what religion was that? Do you know?
I have no idea.
You think it was probably a Protestant?
Oh, it was a Protestant religion, yeah.
But assuming
And we went to the Sunday school. I was a little kid, and Lena didn't send me home. Mother sent me.
Is that kind of unusual? I mean, that she was being Russian Orthodox, so she's going to send you to a Protestant.
Well, maybe she didn't know any better.
Maybe she just figured some religion was better than none.
Or maybe someone talked to her and said, "Well, no, why don't you send this poor little urchin to church?" You know.
Yeah.
And I remember one time we had a little picnic, and we went to some little park or something that had a waterfall, a small waterfall. And, we were under instructions not to get wet. And of course, being a curious boy, and I had to go and find out about the waterfall, and I did. And I got soaking wet, and I had gotten scared that I'd get it when I got home, and so I tried drying myself out in front of the radiator of the truck or bus that took us over there.
It worked?
So by the time I'd gotten home, I was fairly dry.
Yeah.
And I remember I just about started kindergarten, and I learned to read, and I was proud of my reading. And I don't know exactly, summer or end of school, or when one of the teachers came down to talk to my mother for what reason, I don't know, but anyway. I had to read something, and I was kind of proud that I could read what I had to read, whether it was Jack jumped over the candlestick or what, but it was something I was proud of at the time. Well, like any small child today, he gets a little book on reading, and he reads a sentence or two, and he's real proud. He runs up to Mom and Daddy, gee, I can read, you know. So this was me at that time.
You remember your mother taking an interest in your work?
Oh, definitely so.
Yeah, she make you do your homework?
Oh, definitely so. She was real, well, not mean, but very, very stern. And she demanded a lot of me. And she would help me as much as she could. And if I didn't finish all of the work I had to do, she would go to bed and leave me at the table. And I had to finish it before I went to bed. A lot of times I just slept with my head on the table.
You said last time I talked to you that the only Russian word you remember was the Russian word for cow.
Yeah, korova.
And
the only word I remember
you
today.
Remember why you remember that?
No, I really don't. Why it stuck with me when nothing else did, and I used to be able to speak fairly good Russian because I spoke to my mother in Russian.
Hey, have you ever checked as an adult to see if that really was the word for cow?
No, I never have. It didn't bother me. It didn't concern me.
And how was Lena in these times, as far as you were concerned? Did she have any children then?
Yeah, Lena had Mary when I think just as soon as we got here. I think she had married. She had married immediately after. Then later on, when we moved to New Orleans, and she had her other 2 children.
And how was she towards you? Was she nice to you? She didn't care about you, or indifferent, or what?
Well, as long as my mother was different, she was indifferent. I was just one of the house, and we didn't know nothing close, no affection, no nothing. And she had a husband to worry about, which was quite a husband to worry about.
How did your mother and Lena get along?
As far as I could remember, they got along pretty good. And they kept their places because of Dan. Dan being an alcoholic, and it was a problem. And
was he violent?
And my mother tried not to meddle with their affairs. Whenever Dan came home liquored up, she would go to her room, call me to her room, and we'd either lock ourselves up there, or she would take me out on the street, and we'd go walking half the night until the house settled down.
Was he kind of a violent type of guy?
No, very violent.
He would beat Lena up?
Oh, yes, he did.
Did he ever hit you?
Oh, many times. Belts and otherwise. Yeah.
I mean, to actually do you harm, not just to discipline you.
Well, I would say that it wasn't discipline as much as it was kind of a hate to have me there, and I didn't belong, and it's kind of a feeling that I was interfering with his life. I was taking maybe food from his child, and clothing that his child should have, and I shouldn't have been there.
But theoretically, you think your mother brought money with her?
She brought something. She had.
I mean, she must have had money for a railroad ticket, passage over.
I know she had a lot of Russian money, and what she had American-wise, I don't know.
What do you remember? Was all the money paper money?
No, she had paper and silver and coins.
Which the paper was then worthless.
No, it was rubles that were worthless.
I guess the coins were only worth if they were silver by the value of silver.
Yeah, right. Because I remember some of the rubles were 500 rubles, 1,000 rubles, and they were locked up in a trunk. And of course, they had no real value. American-wise, they had no real value.
So then what? So then you left Arkansas, and where did you go?
Then went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Then I saw you had a report for it.
I think that was from North Carolina, I believe. Yeah.
What was that?
And that was George Monstreet, I think in the 2nd grade, and the 3rd grade,
okay.
2nd grade.
To your knowledge, the way you pronounce the name is what?
Monstreet. Monstreeab.
Did Lena ever pronounce it that way?
Yes.
Is that the way you pronounced it all your life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, up until
I mean,
later on in
all
life.
right, when you were 16 and 17
Yeah.
years old, did you pronounce it Mon Street?
No.
What did you call it?
No, because I dropped that name by the time I was 10 years old.
Yeah, but in your mind. I mean, if
Oh,
you,
in my
if you
mind,
thought about
yes,
it, you
yes,
thought about
yes,
it as
it's
Mon
Mon
Street.
Street, yeah.
Mon Street, not
Yeah.
Mon Streever.
No, not Mon Street.
Because
Mon
in some of
Street.
those papers, it ends with an A.
And some of them end with just a B.
And some of them end with Mon Streevich.
Yeah, yeah, but no, I've always said Mon Street. Going to school was Mon Street, and
M-A-U-N?
and I don't know. You messed me up now. M-O-N-S-T-R-E-A-B, I believe it is. Mon Street.
So then, you don't remember anything about North Carolina?
Oh, I remember I had a dog. It was a black dog called Nigger Pup. And when the Army packed us all up to leave, we were being shipped to New Orleans. I had to leave him. How much I cried and how sad I was that I had to leave Nigger Pup. And I remember playing around the camp areas with other kids, and I had a kind of a crush on a little girl who was
What was her name?
Nina Tabor. She was transferred to the Hawaiian Islands the same time that we moved to New Orleans.
Is that why you went to Hawaii a year ago?
No, no.
So then you went to New Orleans. And,
Yeah, I went to New
and
Orleans.
where was he transferred to? New Orleans?
To the port of which is the port of embarkation today.
Which is?
It was an army depot in Poland and the river.
And you had a house there?
We had a house. Well, first we lived in a couple of apartments somewhere. I don't even remember where. Until we found a house. Then we found a house. Dan found a house on Royal. I'm sorry. On
Well, around where?
It was
Was it in the quarter?
downtown. It was about 2 blocks this side of Poland, Lesseps. Lesseps and about Murray Street, 1 or 2
Okay.
blocks off of St. Claude.
Now, Richard found a death certificate for your mother, and at the time it said the address was Lesseps Street.
All right, I'm getting to that.
Okay, so that's
No,
the same
but
house.
I lived on Lesseps Street. My mother died on Lesseps.
It was on
All
a
right,
death
well, it's
certificate.
a street over there, whatever it was. No, we lived there a couple of months, then we moved to Lesseps Street.
Some of these are all rented houses at the time? You have
All of them.
Okay.
All of them.
And what rank did he ever get to be in the Army? Do you know?
Sergeant. What I'd call buck sergeant, he never got any higher than that.
The alcoholic
Buck
hose high.
sergeant, alcoholic for the time.
And
He would drink either drawn through a loaf of stale bread.
how do you know that?
I saw him.
I'm
He would
surprised
take
you didn't
iodine
eat them
and run it through,
Yeah.
through stale French bread
Oh.
from one end to the other.
I wonder why he never got in trouble with the Army. I mean, I wonder why the Army didn't.
Well, because the Army is a clan and they protect each other, and he had company at various times who were officers, and they would buy the bathtub gin, which was
Oh, that's right, it was in
which was
Prohibition. Oh,
It was
that's right.
prohibition, and they would drink anything they could drink, buy bootleg liquor, and you would have a big party with the officers and everything else, and they would booze it up and have a good time.
What, did Lena work, or she just was home?
And no, she was not capable of working in the United States.
That's right.
She had a language barrier. She couldn't speak English, and she had no training in anything. And she couldn't work.
Well, what else do you remember about being in New Orleans then?
Well, when I lived, I wish I could remember. France Street, France. That's where we first moved, on France Street.
Hey, have you ever gone back?
And my mother was still living. And on France Street, we had a backyard with cypress boards, about 6 foot tall, on better. And during the summer, I used to sleep out in the yard under the stars and the mosquitoes.
Why? Because of the heat, or you just wanted to?
Well, it was a small house, and there wasn't enough room for me, really. They would stick me on the back porch. At that time, you had a little back porch, and the bathroom was on the back porch. No bathtub or anything else. You used wash tubs, put hot water in every Saturday night, and when you went back in, you took a bath. Sometimes if the weather was bad, I'd sleep on the back porch. Other times I'd sleep under the stars in the yard. And there my mother made pies, like the little fried pies that you get today from Hughie's.
Some of those fruit fillings.
Yeah, they had various types of fruit filling: raisins, peaches, apples, whatever she happened to decide to make. And every night she mixed up the dough, and I'd have to help her in various things to do this.
And she never learned to speak English, to your knowledge?
Not too much.
Yeah.
I learned more than she did. And she spoke a few words, but she wasn't fluent in speaking. And Lena at the time I was learning, and she learned more than my mother did. And then, of course, my husband being an American, he taught her to speak. So my mother would make up all this dough at night and set it on the back porch, let it rise overnight, and made in tubs of some kind. And then the next day while I was in school, she would cut all the dough up and make pies and bake them and everything. So by the time I gotten home from school, she had a basket of pies ready for me to go out and sell. And I'd go out in the neighborhood and knock on doors or holler pies for sale or something like that, and sold them for a nickel a piece. And whatever money was derived from that, I gave it to my mother.
Now, what did your mother do with it? I mean, was it...
She saved it, and whether that was her contribution to the household or not, but I do know that when she died, she had quite a bit of silver money in a cashmere flower box. And when she died, the same night she died, Dan came into her room, the room I slept into, and dug through the dresser drawers and found the money and cached it.
What else? You were going to school then, right?
Yes, I was going to Washington School.
Have you ever been back up in the neighborhood to look at the address or anything?
Oh, I know the house. I knew the house, yeah.
I mean, you know it today.
I haven't been there in years, but I know it.
One time you told me some Russian people visited your mother.
Yes, but this was much later. This was when we moved from there to Lesseps Street. And I lived there, I don't know how long, but it was right on the other side of Claiborne. And that's where my mother died. And I was still selling pies there. Also, I'd go out to the riverfront, but unloading bananas and pick up baskets of bananas and sell them coming home. The overripe bananas that fell off from the stalks, cast off from the stalks. And I'd sell them and give them money to my mother.
Russians who visited your mother were people who had left Russia earlier and have...
Yeah, but that comes a little bit later. Then my mother died on Lesseps Street. Then we moved across the street, about a block down across the street on Lesseps. And we stayed there for, a couple of 3 months. I really don't know. We stayed there a while. And then we moved to Jackson Barracks. And when we moved to Jackson Barracks, that's when the Russian people would visit.
Well, you mean they didn't visit you when your mother was alive?
I don't remember them, but Lena used to visit, and they visited Lena.
Oh, but you don't remember any visiting while your mother was alive?
Yeah, I remember that there was some people on Burgundy Street around St. Roch or somewhere up in there that we visited several times, but I don't.
Was it men, women, family,
It was
old
a family.
people?
It was a family.
Like middle-aged?
Yeah,
a man and a husband and a wife?
Yeah, middle-aged.
Let's see, this thing's about ready to run out. I might be better off just clearing it instead of stopping in the middle of something. I'm starting over again.
Yeah, but I'd like to know where I ended.
Well, you ended, you were saying that you visited people, and I said, were they old, young?
Yeah, okay.
You said it was a mother and father, and you were up on St. Roch or Burgundy or something.
Burgundy and St. Roch, somewhere
right
in there.
Remember anybody's name? Nothing. You don't remember anybody like
All I
George?
remember that we had to walk over there from Lesseps Street to wherever it was, and that was a mighty long walk.
And you don't remember what they called you?
I was a kid in those days. Children weren't
Children seen in
part of the family. No, they were just they were there, and that's all.
So anyway, your mother died.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember her being sick beforehand?
No, I didn't even know that she was sick. Of course, I was young, and I didn't.
How old do you think you were when your mother died? I mean, I guess we could figure it out, but would you think you're 9, 10 years old?
No, I'd say somewhere 8 or 9 or somewhere up in there.
And you don't remember your mother being sick?
No.
She died in the morning or at night?
She died at night.
And you shared a room with her. Do you remember anything? What about that?
Well, the particular night that she died, of course, she was sick all that day, and that night I didn't sleep in her room because I imagine Lena never knew how sick she was. Mm-hmm. So I slept out on the couch or something in the next room. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden I hear Lena cutting up and crying, and I didn't realize what had happened.
Do you remember if there was a doctor there?
No, but she had gone to Dr. Miro for treatment.
But you don't know
Dr. Miro and St. No, I didn't know. No. I remember all the commotion and everything else, and I didn't know what was going on. So then later on in the night, I see my mother carrying out in a wicker basket through my room and out the front door, and of course I realized then that something serious was going on, and Lena, of course, told me that she passed away.
How'd you take that?
Being a little kid, I didn't know any better, and the next day or the following day, I don't remember which, was the funeral, and I couldn't go.
Because you were a kid? Because
I was a kid, and then Lena said, well, you can go to so-and-so's house, which is a friend of mine, but I don't remember his name. And I said, oh, goody, or words to that effect, and I got batted over because I showed no sorrow, but being a child, you don't realize, what is going on or what's happening.
And of course, you probably don't understand the permanency of it either.
No,
so she's dead. She thinks she'll be dead for a day or two, and then she's going to come back or something.
Yeah. The only thing I knew, I was happy that I could go to my little friend's house. And
do you remember? Was there a religious service? Was there a funeral at a church or anything? Or
I wouldn't know that.
Do you remember attending any churches then?
No.
The only other religious training you remember is at Bible school or wherever.
That's right.
Was there? Did your mother teach you to pray or anything? Did you have any?
I can't quite remember that.
You don't remember any religious? Did Lena ever pray?
Not to my knowledge.
Did she ever pray in her adult life or show any religious training or anything?
Not to my knowledge.
What do you make of that? I mean, do you think that was her own choice, or that your mother didn't push a religion?
Well, I think that my mother didn't push religion, and I think that she married
a man.
I mean, heathen is not the exact word, but he could have been. He was agnostic, I guess, and he didn't believe in God or churches or anything else. And his God was the army and drinking, and that's all he knew.
And probably he wouldn't have liked her to give money or go to church.
Oh, definitely not, because then that would have been taken away from his pleasures.
So then she was buried, but then you never knew where until a couple of years ago when Richard found the death certificate.
Yeah. But she's buried in Greenwood Cemetery.
Do you remember ever visiting her grave or anything?
No, never have.
I mean, as a kid, you never remember.
No.
And,
I wasn't allowed to go.
Did anybody go to Greenwood Cemetery to see if they could locate the grave, like you or Richard? Walk around? Or
Charles Daniels, which is Lena's son, his son came in from Kansas, somewhere up there, Omaha, I believe. And he tried to run down the grave, and he couldn't find it.
Did he talk to the attendants there?
Oh, he did, yes.
And why couldn't they find it?
And they said they had no record of it. a late date. She was buried there. It's probably resold or covered over, or God knows what, but there were no records of it at that time.
I didn't realize that. You mean they don't keep a grave open forever? And you only got 20 years or something, and that's it?
When she died, Dan had no money. He had no income except as a sergeant, and he didn't think of buying a vault, tomb, or
Anything like a potter's field?
whatever thing, and they just buried in the ground. So whether that piece of land belonged, that plot of ground belonged to someone else, and they let him use it for X number of years, I have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
Only thing I know that Lena had gone to the cemetery one time and came back in a hell of a mood. And as she entered the front door, she threw her purse at Dan. And she was crying and mad and cussing, and because Dan had not put a decent marker on her mother's grave. And the only marker I know he had on the grave was some little piece of 2x4s in the form of a cross, and that, of course, was termite eaten in a matter of a couple of years.
So there's probably no trace of it.
No trace of it. I really don't know.
So what happened to you? What happened to you after your mother's death?
Well, then, I lived in the barracks. I went to McDowell 19, and I just lived a little bit and got abused a little bit.
I guess things got worse for you without your mother to protect you.
It did, because then I was given more chores to do that his children wouldn't have to do. They get up in the morning and...
Well, you must have kind of grew up with Charles and Mary. You were like almost brothers and sisters.
Yeah, we were very close, but I was also given to understand that I was an outsider. Yeah. We as children played together, and we were close together as children, but Dan saw it that I never got too close, to accept them as brothers.
The children were nice to you, though?
Well, the children were nice to me, yeah. Except that partiality was shown to them, and nothing to me. Whenever he was in a good mood, and he wasn't too high on liquor, he had a couple of dollars, he'd bring them something. Of course, I got nothing. And I was a little Cinderella. I had to do all of the dirty work.
So then what happened?
Well, we lived there, and I did all the Cinderella work, cleaning the stoves.
But the fairy godmother
and the baseboards,
right?
and yeah.
Well, wait a minute. The fairy godmother did appear in a way.
And so I had to clean the beds and creosote the wood boards around the rooms and all, because all of a sudden we got an infestation of bed bugs. And,
oh my gosh!
And so that was my job. So he was a medical doctor. Of course, he whipped up a batch of
Who was a medical
stuff.
doctor?
Dan, a medical sergeant, was in medical corps. And so he whipped up a batch of stuff that I had to paint onto this baseboard.
That's why he had to eat the iodine to drink.
Yeah, well, it was available to him. Yeah. And so I had to do all that and cut the wood and then put the coal in the coal bin, bring it in at night, start the stove in the morning, make the coffee, and then wake them up and I'd take off to school.
Did they ever threaten you with deporting you?
Oh yes, time and time again. Not so much deporting as to sending me to a hog farm or some other place.
Hog farm or a hog farm?
H-O-G.
Why a hog farm?
Well, because he came from a farming family.
Where did he come
Kentucky.
from? Kentucky?
I'm sorry, Tennessee.
Tennessee,
and his brothers and sisters were all farmers. So, so he figured, well, that was a good place for me to go to feed the hogs. Yeah. And he even threatened me with that. Of course, I was quite young, and he threatened me that even when my mother was living, when he had one of his drunken sprees.
Would he threaten your mother with the same thing?
Oh, I imagine so, but I don't know.
Now, somewhere along the line, I don't know when, but you got sick.
Yeah, I developed pneumonia.
And you don't remember how?
Just like any kid develops pneumonia, isn't it?
And you ended up?
And ended up in Charity Hospital. And so I had double pneumonia at that time. And then I met H.W. Martin.
All right. Now, you were in Charity Hospital, and what, you were in a ward?
I was in a men's ward, being a child.
And they put men and boys and everything?
At that time they didn't, but how I got there, I guess it was the work of God that I was put into a man's ward.
Of course, you must have been 11, 12 or something by then.
Well, I don't think I was quite 11,
Yeah.
but 10.
And was...
And I was running a very, very high fever. And
were you in an oxygen tank?
I've been in the oxygen.
Didn't have oxygen. Okay.
They just had cold water enemas.
All right, so you were around a high fever.
Cold water enemas.
And you
and I was in the next bed to my foster father to be. And he was getting over an illness, and he took care of me.
now...
He saw that I got my medication, saw that I got everything I was supposed to get, and he helped out during that time.
When you were in a hospital, did anybody come visit you?
Lena came one time.
Do you think she came once because she didn't care? That's all that Diana would let her come.
Well, I think a combination of both.
She really wasn't all that interested. Of course, I guess in some defense, she had her own kids, and
Well,
they didn't
that's
have
right.
much money
That's
either.
right.
So you were there all by yourself.
That's
Do you
right.
remember how long you were in there?
I don't remember, but I'd say it'd be somewhere close to a month.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what was call him Pa?
Mm-hmm.
What was he in there for?
I don't know exactly what he was in for, but I was placed in the next bed to him.
Why did he tell me he was in for TB one day? He just made it up.
I don't know.
One day he said he was recovering from TB.
Well, it could have been. I have no idea.
You have no idea. But evidently he wasn't deathly ill.
No, because when I'd gotten there, he was getting over his illness.
Okay.
And he was mobile, and he was able to take care of me, which he did.
Okay, and the thing is, there's a couple things I don't understand. If you're in Charity Hospital, you almost had to be a welfare case, didn't you? Or was that not true then?
Well, it wasn't as bad then, but because you got to remember, when I was at that age, this was a depression time,
Right.
when no one was working.
So I was just wondering why. Why Paul was in Charity Hospital.
He was out of a job, and
Oh, he was.
yeah, he was.
So he was down on his luck
down
too.
on his luck too.
And he had TB or
He
whatever.
had TB or whatever. he
Okay.
had.
So
And,
he was in the
Dan,
next.
Dan at that time was making about $70, $80 a month. You see, so
Yeah.
there was no way he could have paid my hospital bill, so it had to be a charity case.
Okay. Paul was in the next bed,
Mm-hmm.
and he recovered ahead of you.
Right. And he left me there.
At the time, did he have a family, or was he already split up with his family?
Well, I learned later he had been split up with his family.
So at the time, he was practically a bachelor.
That's right.
So, and then he didn't have any ties, and you were probably reminding his son that he just lost too, right?
Right, that's possible.
What was the other, H.W. Jr. was about your age, or younger?
Yeah, H.W. Jr. and I are fairly close,
So it was-
within months, you know.
So in some respects, it was kind of easy for him to make a transition.
Yeah, right.
So then he started talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Was
And
he-
taking care of me.
Was he just as eccentric then as he was in his later years?
Well, at that time, I thought he was a little god.
Yeah.
Because I've never had anyone treat me as well as he did.
Well, what are the type of things he would do?
He would buy me little cookies and candies and help me eat and talk to me when I was
You say
having
they took your
problems
medicine and
took my
everything?
medicines
Yeah.
and helped me with the various enemas I had to take at that time. And at that time, I believed in ice cold enemas and to bring your fever down. And I had very high fever, as I understood. I went up to about 105, 106 at that time. You know. So he helped me out. He left prior to my leaving the hospital, but he came back to visit me and brought me ice cream and he gave me money and brought me cookies and talked to me.
What did he call you?
He called me George.
So by then
Well,
you were
my name was George.
By then you were established with George.
Yeah, George Nicholas. Yeah.
Okay, so then evidently you recovered and it was time to be released from the hospital.
Mhm.
You went back home with Lena.
I went back home with Lena.
And then what did Pa do? Did Pa run into Lena anywhere? I mean, how did he know where you live and everything?
I told him.
And so he would.
No, he may have seen Lena that one time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, so you
But
went.
I mean, I told him where I lived.
You went back to creosote in the baseboards. Or
Yeah,
whatever,
right.
Maybe that's why you were in a hospital. The creosote affected your lungs or something.
Yeah, right.
So then what happened? Pa would visit you?
Yeah, he came down to the barracks and talked to Lena, talked to Dan, and first thing I would spend weekends with him, you know.
Uh-huh. And what would you do with him?
Oh,
Take trips to the country and go get the
well,
mail?
he would take me. He lived in a boarding house, and he'd bring me to town. We would eat. He bought me clothes, went to Beekman's, and outfitted me from head to foot.
Boy, you see that? You said like Cinderella, but that was like the fairy godmother part, right?
And the first time I had good shoes in my life, first time I had my own clothes as such that fit you, and with the white Buster Brown collar and a white shirt, and you know, this was a well outfitted, well dressed.
So then after a
First time in my
while,
life.
I guess you must have developed a closer attachment to him
I did, yeah.
than to your original family.
Yeah.
So then what happened?
Then he used to give me silver dimes when I'd leave him on a Sunday evening. And he'd give me a handful of silver dimes. And when I got home, if I didn't hide them fast enough, I lost them.
Yeah.
You know, Dan would take them away from him and give them to his kids.
Yeah.
So then I lost all my silver dimes. So then I learned to get sneaky after that, and I would hide the dimes before I walked in the house. And I used to write to Paul during the week, you know.
Yes, why did he let you do that?
Well, he probably didn't know it.
Yeah.
And so then I'd write to him and tell him, you know, things that happened during the week, and tell him that the money was stolen from him, things like that, you know.
Yeah.
So then one time in a hospital there was a Baptist minister or something came in. Paul was still there in the hospital. He came in to visit. I guess he's making the rounds of the hospital. He talked to me, found out my status, and he wanted me to go to some boys' home or something like that. And of course,
Do you remember his name?
no, I should have done. But after I'd gotten out of the hospital, he came down the barracks to talk to Lena. And Lena ran the hell out of him.
Why do you think? Because he was Baptist, or because he was talking about sending you off to a home?
Well, he felt I was an abused child, and
Which he was probably right.
Yeah, I was an abused child, and that I could have been brought up better in a home than I could down at the barracks.
How did you feel about that idea about being sent off to a boys' home?
I didn't like it.
Oh,
I didn't want that.
Yeah.
Because I think I knew enough, I understood enough that being in a boys' home was not my way of life. I think I preferred to be a little bit mistreated and have the freedom of a house than I would be locked up in a boys' home.
What? So how long did it go on with Pa just visiting and seeing him on weekends and giving you silver dimes? And,
well, I'd say it probably happened in about 3 or 4 months, and probably all at say maybe about 6 months also.
Now somewhere along
because I had to go back to school, and so then it was all that summer. I know, and maybe a month or two prior to that, and so a deal was made. What it was, I don't know, but anyway, I went Paul before school started, and he entered me into Aloysius.
Wait a minute. At that time, you went with Pa permanently.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he paid the money?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Could have.
Doesn't it seem likely, looking back on it, that
Yeah,
but he probably gave him money and just keep your mouth shut?
Yeah, it could have.
Now, somewhere along the line, Francis Hayes comes in.
No, well, Francis and Hayes and I were buddies in the barracks. His mother lived in the barracks. At that time, they allowed the civilians homes in the barracks. Allowed them to live in the barracks.
So
he was open to the public.
So he knew the whole thing. He knew about you being from Russia. He never.
Yeah,
father, though.
But I mean, he didn't know any more than that, except that I was an orphan.
And he knew
I
Lena,
was-
and he knew
Lena,
Dan,
he knew Dan,
and he
knew
knew
all the
Pa.
kids. Yeah, oh yeah, because
Did he get to be buddies with Pa too?
oh yes, because
Pa would take him away too?
yeah, he would come and spend weekends with me, and summers with me, and everything else for years and years. You see. No, we were very close at that time. I
So-
guess Francis and I were the closest two in the barracks of all of the kids I grew up with in the barracks.
So then you went to live with Pa, and he rode you in Aloysius, and paid for your tuition.
Mhm.
And then after that, I mean, this was kind of like it's just kind of like a normal story.
Right.
Because then after you were George Martin, you graduated, you went to LSU, you got married, you went in the Army, so on and so forth.
Right.
I guess after you lived with Pa, then you kind of almost wanted to forget about all of that.
I did.
And you
Tried to.
and you didn't want to be reminded that you were from Russia, or your
That's
name was
right.
Nikolai
That's
Monstreev,
right.
or anything else.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons I guess Dan probably thought that was the same thing that happened to me in the Army and prior to getting into service and things like that. That he would always tell me that I was here illegally and that I could be subject going back to Russia. You know. But this is, I guess, one of the holes that fought kind of head over me, you know. And really, I feared that even as an adult, because knowing him for what he was, I figured he could do it.
Yeah.
So then when I got in the service and I took my entrance exams and so forth, and my IQ qualified me for officers training camp. It was the what's that, officers training
AOQTC, or OTC.
Officer Training Corps, OTC.
Yeah.
They qualified me for that, and I turned it down because I was afraid I'd have to prove place of birth if I became a commissioned officer.
That never came up in the Army that you were born in Russia.
No,
Do you have any reason to believe that you're not born in Russia?
no, I don't know where I'm born.
Yeah, but I mean, but to your understanding, you were led to believe that you were born
Yes,
in Russia.
because I spoke Russian, and then the people I was associated with spoke Russian.
And everybody kept threatening you to send you to Russia.
Send me to Russia. And so even as an adult, I say I was threatened that I could go back to Russia, which I didn't want to do, definitely didn't want to do.
Now,
And so I mean I turned this down and just became a private and fought my way in the Army up to my discharge rank.
you always thought they were going to deport you, even when you were an adult and you were married.
I was afraid because I never could prove birth
You never thought
in the United States.
You never thought of consulting a lawyer or like taking anybody in confidence.
Not until much later in life. Very, very much later in life.
Like 20 years ago or something.
Well, really, I did this much after Pa officially adopted me.
Right.
And really, after he died, I felt that this was the last
Yeah.
peg in the fence that could send me to Russia.
Right.
So when he died, I did consult a lawyer,
Now,
but it was too late in life.
when you began to live with Pa, obviously he paid your food, your tuition, your clothing, and really almost took you on as his son.
He did.
Okay.
He said I was his son.
Did you ever?
Publicly
Did you
said
ever
it.
think? Did you ever think as he introduced people as he introduced you as his son?
My son, yeah.
He never said this is
No, he-
my
he-
friend or a kid or his brat.
I know he accepted my family as his grandchildren.
He did. Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you're. I mean, but
Yeah.
not the
No,
not the.
no,
Okay.
no.
But what? Did you ever, as an adult, wonder what his motives were? I mean, today, you or I wouldn't. I mean, it would be strange for somebody to do that today. It would be like taking a Vietnamese.
I don't know. Maybe it's well, he told me, he said, I guess he was lonesome. He just come from a bad marriage, and I guess he was lonesome, as you said. I was the same age as his son, and he could see something in me that reminded me of his son. And I know he used to tell me throughout his lifetime that I raised you now. When I get to be an old man, you can.
You take care of me.
I know you take care of me, which I did
Yeah, you
until the
did.
day he died.
Right. Did he,
So then I guess it was a case of loneliness, and I guess I grew on him, and he got to loving me in his way, and did everything he could for me.
the whole time you were with him up until you got married, did you always feel like he loved you? I mean, did you always feel like, or
Well, I
was
knew
he
he-
sometimes abusive to you?
Well, sometime in his way, but knowing him, and he was
Okay,
he
but
was erratic, and he would have these spells of
vindictiveness.
temper, vindictiveness,
Yeah.
and things like that. But then on the next minute, he would break his neck to do something good for you.
Which was different from Dan, because Dan never had these good moments,
good
right?
moments, right?
And of course, I guess, maybe looking back on Paul, maybe you felt like he was just more misguided than he was mean-intentioned, right? I mean, is
Well,
that kind of the
that's
feeling
it.
you
And
had?
then I don't think he knew or understand how to raise a family
Yeah.
since he broke up with his wife.
And he was also spoiled himself.
Oh, he was a spoiled brat.
That's probably how he knew how to do is spoil people.
No, because his mother and his father and all of his brothers and sisters said that he was the most spoiled of all of
Was he the youngest?
all of 22 children.
22?
Yeah.
They was at 22.
Yeah, 22 children.
So then...
And he wasn't the youngest, but he was, well, I'd say he was about the third youngest, I believe, of the 22 children.
So then, that's then everything went on from there,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, went to
and
school,
he
went
was
to
willing
college.
he was willing to pay for everything. He actually took you into the business, and then later on made official, married his son. And,
Well, he did his pride in that.
and I guess from time to time, we didn't adopt you until like 58 or something.
Yeah, I
or
know,
57.
but
as far
he
as
didn't
public-
take me into the business.
Right.
What he did, yeah.
Right. I guess.
But still, prior to the adoption, I was his son for all
Yeah,
practical purposes.
right.
You know, when you went to New York, Chicago, and so
Right,
forth,
yeah,
I mean, how's your dad do?
Yeah, right.
You know, your son, you know.
Right. And I forgot what I was going to say. Let's see. I was going to make some great point here. Well, anyway, were you going to say anything? What was I going to say?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if,
Oh, wait a minute, I know what I was going to say. So basically, then you accepted that role.
right.
And for a long time...
I lived that role.
Okay, but up until about, I guess in the summertime, you'd go visit Lena maybe for a couple of days? Or
Yeah, just
See
took
ya.
a visiting, yeah.
On your own, you always went with Pop.
Oh, no, he very seldom came.
He'd just drop you off and pick you up.
I know, you talking when he's in the barracks?
Well, just years later, as you
Oh, well,
began to go to
years
the
later, when she moved from the barracks to Pensacola, then I'd go see her occasionally, maybe a couple of days in the summer, you know, just to have someplace to go in and, you know, just to visit.
Did,
And Dan was alive at the time, and he accepted me differently then. After that, you know, then I was with Paul, and I was, you
right,
know,
probably
I
so
was
a source of money then.
Yeah, and so then I no longer was a
Yeah.
burden on him. I wasn't taking anything away from him.
Why did they move to Pensacola?
That's the way the government sends you.
But I don't know that there was any Army installations
Oh, yeah.
in Then
There's
eventually,
Army, Navy, Marines over there.
eventually he committed suicide, didn't he?
Yeah, he committed suicide during the war about 44.
You were
44.
overseas when that happened?
No, I was in Oklahoma, Camp Gruber, Oklahoma, when he committed
And
suicide.
how did he commit suicide?
He shot his brains out in the bathroom in Army 45.
You know why?
Well, I'm assuming why, because I had seen him prior to going in the Army, maybe 6 or 8 months prior to going in the Army, and he was suffering from what I say is cancer of the stomach, from all that alcohol and stuff, and that it ate out his stomach. And I know the last time I saw him, he was in real misery. I mean, his stomach was hurting him so badly. And I'm sure that this particular morning he got up and he probably couldn't stand the pain. He just shot himself. In the meantime, he had been discharged from the Army, and he was working for basic training and mud and water and slush. I lived a little bit. But then, as you said, maybe I wouldn't be here today.
So, so he killed himself. That was the end of that. He went in the army. And I guess Lena then was a widow.
Right.
But her children at that time were grown. They were in the
Her
Navy.
children at that time, they were in the Navy. They had gone to the Navy right out of high school.
Now, like I said,
And Mary was the only one home at that time. She was working at the Pensacola Air Base.
up until about 15 years ago, you were willing to just have forgotten that part of your life.
Oh, yes.
You didn't want to talk about it. You didn't want anybody to ask. I mean, even though I had seen Lena and everything, nobody, you weren't supposed to ask questions about it or anything, right?
Well, that's what I told Mother, and Mother honored my request that we're going to get married, and this is where our life starts. I know you and I, and this is it, and this is our family, and my past, I mean, forget about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to be reminded of it.
Yeah, but when you were
And
about
she honored my request all these years.
but when you were about 50 years old, you changed your mind.
Yeah, so your
You
mother...
decided all of a sudden that you wanted to know.
Well, not so much that as much it was the pressure from my children and your mother.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Wait a minute.
You all
Wait a
kept
minute.
pushing me, and Mother
Wait a
kept saying,
minute.
why don't you do it?
I've never really known you've done anything under pressure. You must have decided that you wanted to know something
No,
about
because
your
your
origin.
mother talked me into it more than anybody.
And you really,
She says, why don't you? I mean, what do you hide? What you got there? You steal something? I said, no.
so then you begin to ask Lena questions.
Yeah,
And
and it got very few answers.
why do you think?
Because she had something to hide, and she didn't want me to know.
Did any word ever come up of your father?
No, except that Lena said that he was a merchant. And that's the only thing I ever heard from him.
Did you ever find out what name
And then he
had?
stayed in Russia when we came here. No, nothing.
And that's all you know about
That's
it?
all I know about
You never saw a picture of it? Anything?
it. Well, I saw what was supposed to be him in one of Lena's books.
What did he look like?
Yeah, he looked like a Wallace with a mustache and a Cossack cap and a big heavy overcoat.
Oh, really? What else did you find from Lena? Anything else?
No,
Then Lena ended up dying.
and Lena ended up dying.
And what did Lena die of?
She died of a massive heart attack.
And what did your mother die of?
Heart attack. And I have heart trouble.
Yeah, but how old was Lena when she died?
Lena was
78? 75?
about that.
Yeah. But your mother was younger.
I guess she was in her 50s.
Yeah. And,
I don't think she was 78, but she was in her early 70s.
what she,
Lena.
had Lena had any heart trouble prior to her?
She had in the last few years, she had a little heart problem. Nothing serious, but she was the type that didn't believe in going to the doctor unless she was flat on her back, and she was a bit.
Then after Lena died, then you began to get some bits and pieces from her children, like you had a midwife certificate for your mother,
Right.
which was translated, and you had Lena's baptism certificate.
Right.
And that's when you told me the story about you being born in Yakutsk.
Well, that's some of the stuff that came out in a letter that Lena's kids had translated. So I really don't know.
Did you ever doubt during that time that woman who your mother was really your mother?
No, I had no doubts because I grew up with her. In the few years I grew up, she took care of me. She protected me from Dan. We spoke together. She saw that I was bathed and clean and going to school every day, even though I was a 10 o'clock scholar at Washington School, and I got the nickname of 10 o'clock scholar. Now, whether she couldn't tell the time or what, but I was always sent to school about 10 o'clock. And so, but up until just recently, really, I had no reason to believe that she wasn't.
Now, just recently, or like a year or so ago, you went back and you talked to who? Charles?
Mary.
Mary. And you asked her some more questions. And
And they were evasive, but I did get a little bit of information out that I was taken out by her grandmother, which was supposedly my mother.
No, not her grandmother, her mother. No,
Her grandmother,
I'm
Lena's
sorry,
mother.
you're right, you're correct.
But I was not her child, so I don't know.
How did she tell you that? I mean, did she tell you this matter of factly, or?
No, she hammered and stole, and then I got to the point, I said, well, then tell me, what's the difference? I said, everybody's dead,
Well,
you know, and I said, well, she said that I was supposed to belong to someone else, and I don't know
but you didn't know who,
who, no,
or as to why she would have taken you if you didn't belong to her.
no,
And that was all you found out.
all I found out today.
So then, did they say whether Lena was your sister or not?
No, they said Lena was not.
Uh-huh.
Well, not in so many words, but
that's what it meant.
but you assumed, you know.
Did they say
if
that?
she wasn't my mother, Lena could not be my sister.
Well, not necessarily, but anyway, but they said that Lena's definitely Olga's daughter.
Daughter, yeah.
How'd you take that news?
It didn't bother me because I had already washed all that out of my mind. Read at 60 years old, what do you care what you are, who you are?
Well, it's not who you
I
are.
mean, your life is finished, and I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're a king or a bum, because there's nothing I can do about it. So, and that's the way I feel. That I am what I am, and what I was or what I come from really doesn't matter because that's in the past.
So didn't Mother ask Francis Hayes' sister about that?
I don't know if she asked Francis Hayes' sister or Francis Hayes' mother, but
Francis Hayes' mother's still alive?
what she was during her lifetime.
No, I mean just recently about
recently.
the fact about you not being a direct descendant.
I don't know if she did. I think she told you she did.
Yeah,
I mean,
I thought she had to tell you.
No. I know she talked to Doc, but I don't know exactly.
I thought there was some story about, she had heard the story that you really weren't the son of a seamstress.
That's possible.
You never heard that story before?
Not until,
I mean, to Mother.
until it came out, somebody came out. Yeah.
Well, I can't understand that I can't think of her name, what's her name, Dot?
Doc, yeah.
If she knew that story all of our life, how come it never got back to you or Mother? I mean,
Well, because everybody kept it a secret.
that's something.
Even Francis. I've known him for, at least 60 years now, I'd say.
Yeah.
And he has, to my knowledge, has never told anyone, any of our friends, that I wasn't George Martin.
Did you ever talk to him about this? About not really being a direct...
No, because it didn't matter, and there wasn't a point of conversation.
It doesn't matter.
Because we grew up as Francis and George, and
well, it doesn't.
And I mean, it didn't affect either one of us, one way or another.
Well, it doesn't matter as far as your identity goes, but it matters as far as if you try to go back and discover your roots.
Well, I don't think he knew enough.
Yeah.
I think, if anything, Francis' mother would have talked to Lena about how much she divulged to her children. I don't know.
But you never asked him. You don't want to.
No, see?
Why? You're not interested?
I mean, it makes no, I'm not interested at this point in the game.
Yeah, I know, but you do contradicting things. You said you're bringing a newspaper article about checking your
Yeah,
roots.
but you all want that. I don't.
And so if I get a copy of it, you don't want to see it.
Oh, yeah, I like to see it.
Okay.
I'm curious. I'm curious.
So then
I'm curious.
that's pretty much all you know.
Okay.
And what was the story on? You have a silver cup.
Lena said that was my cup when I was a child.
Now,
And
when
it belonged, she brought my mother brought a big silver set over here. A tremendous thing with silver crystals and everything else. And this cup was supposedly mine. Now, when I was a child, it was set at my place at the table, supposedly. So, Lena gave it to me and said it was mine.
how long ago did she give it to you?
Hey.
I mean, approximately. In the 40s, the 50s, 60s?
Somewhere in the 40s, probably.
Prior to you going in the war or after?
Prior to my going in the war.
So then probably it's pretty true then. I mean,
It's true, she gave it to me.
Okay, no, but I mean, it's probably true that you're a cup because she gave it to you at a time when she just volunteered. She didn't give it to you as a result of you pestering her to give you something, right?
Well, no, but I think it was at the time that I said, well, what do you have of mothers or something that I can have or belong to me or something like that, maybe, you see. And then she came to that. And all that stuff was hocked away over the years. And
It's amazing that was still left.
and we had, well, it is amazing. And I think Mary still has 3 or 4 pieces left of that, whatever it is. And we had one of these big summer barns, I believe, and that was sold to some hog shop. Extra drink somewhere along the line.
And do you have anything else, Miss Candy? You have a photograph, don't you?
I have photographs of what I considered when that was my mother, but they said that it wasn't today.
It's a picture of your mother alone?
With Mary.
Mary, who's married?
Married her. No, with Lena, I'm sorry, Lena.
Of course, Lena's real name was Angelina, right?
Mm-hmm. So Americanized as Lena.
Yeah, but did you know that?
That it was Angelina? No.
Yeah,
No.
so just recently they had this paper translate.
No, I didn't know that.
And you have any other pictures?
I can't remember offhand.
I think you got some pictures of Eskimos or something.
Yeah, but those came from Mary's album. I really don't know what they are.
Yeah.
They were written to Mary, I believe. I don't remember.
Maybe.
Either Mary or they were written to my mother to go with. I
Did
think
you-
some of those pictures.
Did you have an old icon or did I dream that?
No, I owned an icon. No, I didn't own it. I do now. Because we had a lot of them when I was a child. I remember seeing them. And Lena gave me an icon. And then I have it now. Which isn't there, true.
Did you have something in the store or anything?
I would like to, but I don't know where.
What, do you remember icons being up on display in your house?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mantelpieces and so forth.
In front of candles or something like that, maybe.
I don't remember the candle part, but I do remember that. And I remember the little communion bread, whatever they call them. Little wafers of bread that placed on the mantelpiece with them.
They were really real bread?
They were prepared bread of some kind of religious significance. I don't know what it was. Especially the bread.
Is there anything else that we missed?
Well, what happened to all the money? I don't know.
Gone.
Oh,
That's wrong.
I know all of the bonds and all that Mary has today, which you got some information on, they're worthless. All of the rubles, that trunk full of rubles, they all disappeared.
Gone, the money's gone, Lena's gone, your mother's gone. That's it.
Everything's gone.
I mean, it's just bits and pieces of this and that you're trying to put together.
Well, I know my life started in November 1940, and that was the beginning of my life and mother's life together. And that's why I wanted, and that's why I hope it'll end.
How did your name end up George Nicholas Martin? I mean, you must have.
I don't know. I guess Americanized.
You never. I mean, but you never consciously put it together or anything. It's just they started calling you George, then they started calling you Martin because you were Pa's son.
Yeah.
And then.
Well, they used to call me Nikolai when I was a kid, and so when I didn't like Nikolai going to school, so I think I Americanized it by
You called it Nicholas.
Nicholas, because I just felt strange about being called Nikolai.
Now, there's strange things about you. You got scars on your body, right?
Oh, I can't explain that.
You have a scar on your back.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
my
across your
right
chest?
chest
Where else?
and my right arm, about 2 inches, 3 inches.
And you've never had an explanation of that.
Yeah.
And no, you never asked. You never asked
No.
Lena. It's kind of strange that you would never ask.
Well, Lena was a strange individual. She was scared to death. She was afraid to open her mouth in fear of being sent back to Russia. Dan threatened her with that, I think, practically every day of his life, I imagine. And she was afraid to do anything. She used to write to relatives back in Russia till the war broke out. Then she wrote them all and said, "Don't write me from here on out." I mean,
Why?
Forget I'm living.
Wonder why?
Because she didn't want to get involved with Russian correspondence
Yeah, but,
back and forth.
but the Russians were on our side during the war.
Yeah, I know, but she didn't understand. She was ignorant. And whenever I would bring up anything, she would close mouth and she wouldn't talk.
Right.
So then I had to force a widow's pension on her after Dan shot himself. I wrote to the VFW in Pensacola and explained the case that she was a widow of a career Army sergeant, and she was entitled to a pension. He's been dead for about 3 years then, I guess. This was after I came back from service. And she was entitled to a pension, and she had never gotten it. She was afraid to get it. And asked him to help her, and it was not until after the war that she started receiving a pension. And the only reason she didn't do it because she was afraid. And all that 3 years, she could have been doing a government thing.
If you go on impressions, and of course impressions are sometimes just feelings, it's not a fact, but did you have the impression that your mother was intelligent?
Oh, very much so.
Do you have the impression that your mother was educated?
Oh, very much so.
Do you have the impression that Lena was intelligent?
No.
Do you have the impression that Lena was educated?
No.
Don't you find that a contradiction? I mean, like supposedly if your mother was a school teacher and was educated and intelligent, why was Lena such a...
Yeah, but Lena married so early in life, and if you take back in what, 1914, 1915, what kind of schools did they have in Russia available to people like Lena? And then she got married and she came to the United States, her education ended.
Yeah, but the only thing is that sometimes you have a sense of a person, even without a formal education, that they really are intelligent and they have been exposed to some education.
No, she was exposed to some, but she was not brilliant. She wasn't. Of course, maybe or they transitioned from Russia to America. Didn't manifest itself in it, you know.
It's just like that.
Probably she could think in Russian and explain things in Russia. I might have had a different opinion.
Yeah, that's true. Because your
but
mother...
trying to talk to me in English, which was limited, was very hard.
That's true, because when you were talking to your mother was talking to you in Russian, you were able to understand it. Whereas Lena could only speak like an immigrant's language.
Which she did, almost till the day she died.
Right. Which she never really had a good life.
No.
She never ever had a good life.
No, she never had a happy life, never.
I mean, unless you had stuff tucked away anytime we'd visit, it was just a ramshackle house.
Yeah. Well, that's all they ever had. That's all she had till when she died. You know, back in the woods, but the same house she had on Oak Street.
They moved it.
They moved it back in the woods, and the woods all grew up around it.
She was
with
on
all
Oak
the 20
Street?
cats.
Oak Street?
Oh, for Oscar.
I didn't know that.
In Pensacola.
And then where did they move to?
Then they moved out to what they call Gulf Point or Gulf Shores, outside of Pensacola.
I guess the house is still there.
Oh yeah, Charles is living in it. And Mary lives across they got about 150 now. Cats and dogs in wilderness. When you talk about jungle, he lives in the jungle. I mean, across his front door, he's got limbs he won't cut down.
And he's probably armed to the teeth.
And he's armed to the teeth, that's right. You're right.
Yeah.
And he's still a bachelor.
Yeah. And he's retired from the Navy.
He quit the Navy. He didn't retire. Well, he didn't quit the Navy. He was discharged, and then he got a part-time job with the Navy as a machinist, and he quit that and went with the paper mill over there in Pensacola. He's been there for 30-some odd years in the paper mill, ready to retire.
Yeah.
Charles, he's retired from the Navy, and he lives in the jungle. He lives in a house trailer in the jungle.
Armed to the teeth.
Armed to the teeth.
How do they feel about
that? I know you can always find him in the VFW bar on the highway, I think.
How do they feel about being half Russian?
The boys don't. Well, no, well, the kids were all born here.
Well, that's true, but their mother was Russian. I mean, they are.
Yeah.
I mean, do they feel comfortable about
Oh
it?
yeah, they feel comfortable. Well, they're
Do they tell people?
They are more American than they. Oh, well, they're Americans.
They're Americans, but they're still half Russian. I mean,
Yeah, by
nationality
blood,
was-
by
yeah.
blood. Yeah. But they're Americans and they're proud of it. And, they would like to know their family. They're trying
But
everything.
they're not
well.
doing anything about it. The
They're
only
trying everything they can right now to run their families down.
the only other person, as far as you know, that's doing anything about it is Charles Jr. Is that his name?
Charles Jr. Tried to run it down, but when I saw him last summer before last, he stopped at our house. And he looks like he's come to a dead end.
What did he come up with that you didn't know?
He came up where the plot was supposed to be, and he dug up the death certificate.
I thought Richard dug up the death.
He did, Charles Jr.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then I sent him to Richard. Maybe he sent you one. You know,
Yeah,
whatever.
he did. What? Well, that's amazing that he did that. How did he? How was he able to do that?
Well, he talked to his dad and talked to his aunt, which was Mary. Then he came to see me, talked to me, and then he went to Shane. And Shane dug up the old record for him and found where they issued the death certificate at that time.
Anything else you come up with?
Everything was blank.
And you're not quite sure where he lives.
I have it at home. I think it's Omaha, Nebraska, I believe.
And he's a policeman?
He's a policeman, yeah.
State police? City police?
City policeman, yeah. He's a nice boy. He was Charles's wife, first wife's son.
Yeah, okay.
All right, Charles and his first wife were childhood sweethearts in North Carolina. And the war broke open, and so Charles was in the Navy, and in the meantime she marries a flyer. He gets killed, and they have a daughter. So then, after the war is over, Charles goes back to North Carolina and looks her up. They get married, and then Bubba was born by that union, you see. So there's Bubba, which is his full son, and then the girl,
Sam May.
Sammy, the girl was Sammy.
Is that her real name?
Sammy,
Who was the wife's name?
Kay.
Whatever happened to her?
She's still in Pensacola. She's, the last I heard, she's a nurse over at the Pensacola Hospital, General Hospital, whatever it is.
Did you say
No,
Charles?
she never remarried, as far as I know.
You said Charles is an alcoholic?
Charles is well along the way to being an alcoholic.
Robert an alcoholic?
No, Robert quit drinking entirely.
Why?
Well, he just got the idea one morning, the hell with this drinking, and quit.
None of them ever had religion or anything like that?
No, none of them.
Even Mary?
Mary has no outward religion. She doesn't attend church or meetings or anything like that. But she has her own form of a religion, which is kind of a naturalist.
Yeah.
And she says prayers at night, whatever they are, I don't know. But she has her own little form.
They're really
of
kind of
religion.
into nature and animals and that type of thing. too.
She wouldn't kill a mosquito. She wouldn't kill a.
What's her married name? Flowers?
Flowers, yeah.
And what was her husband's name?
Red.
That's not his real name.
Fred.
Frank.
Frank Flower.
And she doesn't drink.
No,
Yes.
she used to drink beer every day. Yeah, quite a bit of beer every day. But she never got drunk. Drink and smoke, that was it. A cigarette and a beer, cigarette and a
Still
beer.
smoke?
Well, that was the same thing Lena did. Up until the day she died, a cigarette and a beer, cigarette and a beer. She and Frank are still living together by the hardest, but
I think it's kind of funny when you start to remember something, you start to remember the smells too. Like you're talking about the post office, if you can remember the smell of the post office. You start to talk about her, if you can remember the smell of the house. Cigarettes and cats. It's kind of like a
cigarettes and
combination.
cats and birds.
Yeah, you kind of
birds
can
and
blend all
dogs.
that together. That's kind of what it smells like.
Dogs, And Frank's starting to hit the bottle pretty good. You know.
How pathetic, huh?
Yeah.
You'd have to
I know
think.
he had a heart attack, he had a bypass, had a heart attack, and then Mary says that he got in there with the wrong crowd and started playing golf. Became an avid golfer, and so, you know, after each game,
Yeah,
they had
to
to
get a
go to
drink.
the bar and get drinks, and so he just, I know he's been hitting the bottle pretty good lately.
That's almost the case you could say if it wasn't for Paul, you'd probably be living in Gulf Shores and being an alcoholic, living in the jungle and being armed to the teeth, right?
No, if I'd have continued living with Dan, when I gotten to be 15 or 16 years old, my family would have been in the army.
Yeah, you're right.
Because that was one of his threats. He said, boy, just as soon as you get big enough, you're going to the army.
Probably would have had you shipped out somewhere.
Oh, yeah, because he would have lied about my age or whatever, you know, to get me in the army.
They had you in the canal zone or
And
something.
so I'd have been in the service. Today I could have been a career nobody, I guess, because I wouldn't have had any education. Unless what the army taught me, how well I would have grasped it and what I did with it, because as bad as the army sounds, the right person gets in it, he can make something of himself. But if you go in there and you're a bum, you're gonna come out a worse bum. But it depends on the man. Everybody, condemns the service over a lot, but I don't. It depends on you. Opportunities are there if you want to take advantage of them.
Is there anything else we didn't cover about Russia or your background or your early life?
Well, I can remember being in Japan, but that's the only thing. It's one of our transfer points, but that was shortly.
What do you know about that?
I remember getting on the boat there. And,
But your only memory of ever being in Russia is looking out a window and seeing Linda. Seeing Lena.
Yeah, and it was snowing. It was snowing like daylights, and she cleaned off the window there and threw a little snowball at me or whatever.
Of course, the thing is, if she wasn't your sister, why were you looking at her?
I don't know. I was in a warm house. She was out there.
Do you think there's any connection that there's any significance to the fact that Olga was a midwife?
Well, according to the papers, that she was.
Yeah, I know, but do you think there's any significance to the fact that she would have picked up foundlings or something, or
well,
or
I don't
she
know.
could forge papers, or she could. I mean, you can either go on one of three theories. One, it doesn't mean anything. Two, if you were a midwife, you delivered babies, and sometimes babies weren't wanted, and you would take them for a while until you could find a place to put them or take them permanently. Or three, she could be used to change names. In other words, she could come up, if somebody had a baby who had a hard time getting out of the country, she was in a position to give a phony birth
or she was
certificate.
with royalty or something that shouldn't have had one, and you know.
That could happen too.
Well, Mary told me a story, and of course all this is supposition, that there was a very prominent lawyer who had two sons, infant sons, and he was very wealthy, and the soldiers came in, struck him out of his house, and killed him on the lawn. You know, just really for no reason at that, except that he was wealthy, and I guess he belonged to the Tsar's family. I don't know, you know, but anyway, probably had some connection. And she said that one of the sons had died or disappeared, and then the other son was killed, or was killed. Whatever happened to the other son, they don't know. And I know myself, I can, of course, this is all fairy tales. Yeah. I can think that maybe I could have been, you know, this is fairy tale. I could have been one of the kids, and since he was so wealthy, and she was a midwife, maybe he gave her so much money, so much this stock, which he thought was going to continue, to get me out of Russia, get me away from the Tsarist, and that could have, I don't know.
Plus, the thing is, I'm saying that she being a midwife, she can change papers around. She probably fill out birth certificates. You could go from being one name to being another name, and she was able to get away with it and do it legally.
And the thing is, since he was a lawyer, he could have fixed up papers for her.
That's true. To get her out.
To get me into Mongolia and Manchuria and down to China and God knows what. because as I understood, this is the way that they traveled up, up that way some kind of way, you know, all through that area, finally getting down to China.
Well, they didn't go through Vladivostok.
No.
They went overland into
Overland,
China.
yeah. So he would be the only one, and giving her all this money, he'd here, take care of my son or whatever,
Why
and
did
do
he-
whatever you have to do to get him out.
Why did Mary tell you that story?
I don't know.
Just out of the blue?
No, some kind of way we were talking and it connected. I don't know just exactly why.
Don't you think that's strange? I mean, out of anything
It's
that she
strange,
could tell
yeah,
you,
yeah.
that she tells you that story.
Yeah. But I don't know.
Of course, you know, you start grasping for straws,
Oh.
but then if you go in that scenario, things begin to fit. Even the thing of the stars, right? When he left for dead, or
But, but according to Mary, there were two infant boys. One of them was killed, the other one disappeared or died or whatever. You know.
But if you go with that scenario, then you don't know whether Monstreve is the right name or not, right? You don't know if it's Olga's name, the attorney's name,
Or some name that the attorney got out of blue sky.
picked out of the sky.
No, because he was, as Mary said, he was well known, he's powerful, and he could have gotten whatever necessary papers he needed to, to get around of Russia.
You don't remember traveling through Manchuria or China?
Yeah. I remember China because of that little episode.
Right. That's all I remember.
Yeah. And somebody opened the door on me and mashed my toes. I was standing by a door and the door came towards me.
Yeah.
Somebody came from the outside and splashed it on my toes. I remember that. That hurt. But those are the things, Well, you hear them, you say, well, could I have been? I don't know.
Yeah.
I never will know.
Anything else?
Only thing that makes me think there might be something to that was the wealth that she came here with,
Uh-huh.
So there had to be something to that story somewhere.
Right.
Whether it was her wealth or whether that was the wealth that she had. Because all these bonds that you had a copy of that you saw were bearer bonds, they were in no one's name.
That's correct.
So she could have cashed them anytime
Right.
as she needed money. And they were all bearer bonds.
And one of those bonds was issued quite some time ago, like in the 1800s or something. So I mean, it was something that was held for a long time. It wasn't something that was recently purchased, like 3 or 4 years ahead. You remember anything else we didn't cover?
I don't think so. If you think of something else, that's right.
Yeah, we'll get to take it. Was there anything else?
Yeah, it's time to get my drink.
All right.